Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Q&A live stream. I am your minimal bank space host Mod Sarnie and I am joined by none other than the wonderful Mod Ash and Mod Ayiza. How are you both doing?
Pretty swell.
Doing well, thanks.
Awesome stuff. We also have the lovely Mod Druid behind the scenes, and as always, if you have any questions you'd like to ask the team, make sure to @OldSchoolRS so we can see your questions. So in today's stream, we'll be looking mainly at the recent economy blog that went out around 5 hours ago. Also, I'll briefly speak about the recent Android beta announcement, and we'll get a small update from Ayiza before he has to disappear. But before we get into any of that, let's go through some announcements. So, Game Update. This week's update brings some small quality of life changes to the game, including changes to the Amulet of Avarice, Seed Vault, and more. Plus, we share more information about our next steps for the Duel Arena, and we announced an Android beta to test out the new features coming to the mobile experience. You can use Game Update to find out more, or if you'd like to sign up for the beta, you can use Android beta to be taken straight to the form. Economy. Whether you're selling your PVM drops, stocking up for your next PKing trip, or simply in the market for skill boosters, the economy underpins everything in Old School for non-Iron players, and we've been investigating ways we can keep it healthy for many years to come. From item sinks to literal golden sinks, read today's blog with Economy for all the info on our proposed changes. And finally, what do you AFK when you're playing Old School? The obvious answer is Melvor Idol, a feature-rich, Old School RuneScape-inspired idle game that's now being supported and published by Jagex Partners. You can find out more about the new partnership with Melvor Idol. Now, before we get into Ayiza's small announcement, let's take a look at some UGC that we didn't get to show on Monday. This first one is from Fancy Lee, and it is a Dragon Med pumpkin.
That's cool.
The eye in the background is amazing. Like, I'm a bit thrown off more by the eye than the Dragon Med helmet.
Dragon Med. Yo, are you going to put your pumpkins up on here? I know they might. They're not really RuneScape related, are they? Actually, they were well good.
I mean, they're definitely not. It was weird. It was my first time carving them, so I was quite proud. Yeah, they were pretty cool. They were pretty good. I didn't realize how much. Yeah, I didn't realize how much stuff is inside the pumpkin. Like, because I don't eat pumpkin.
Oh, I guess it's your first time, right? So I guess you don't know what to expect. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's like so many seeds, like so many. It's crazy. The next one we've got is the Clan Costume Party by EAZ 480. What a good place to have a costume party down in the basement in a general manner. Fantastic.
I guess it's fitting, right, with the whole timing of it being Halloween and whatnot. It makes sense.
Of course.
With those candles down there, that seems like a very awkward place for a party.
Yeah, maybe a bit of a health and safety hazard for any parties. Maybe choose a more safe environment for your next one.
I feel bad for anyone who down there going to do the quest. Like, imagine that it's just suddenly filled with all these people dressed up as, well, God knows what. Oh wait, there is a person doing a quest there. He's literally in the image.
I definitely feel like that's the busiest I've ever seen that basement before, ever. I don't think I've ever seen it that busy before.
Oh, wait until Leagues. You'll see plenty of people down there.
Okay, I hope so.
There was a sort of cryptic clue puzzle hunt thing years ago where players had to, go around the game and find out certain things, and from the answers they'd get to the next puzzle, and that get the next puzzle, and then prize at the end or something. And one of the questions was, how many candles are there in the basement at Drader Manor? And I think this one got removed the next day for being just mean.
Awesome. The next image we have is Behind You from Efficient B 2605, which again, Fashionscape quite on point. Speaking of that, Choji Yeah, Joji's just snuck in and scared me a little bit while I was looking at that image with a giant meow. The next image we have.
That outfit, it terrified you, didn't it, mate? Come on.
It is. It caught me off guard.
The cat.
What can I say? The next one is In a Galaxy Far Away from OSRS 4K. I mean, looks very, very cool. Very, very cool.
This looks like it's Diablo or something. Spooky.
And finally, we have My Halloween Fashionscape. Of course, got to keep up the Halloween trend. Nice. I like how they've incorporated the new Ghost in the Bottle. Very much appreciate that.
That is cool. And a little friendly monkey on the back. I'm not sure about the Pegasians. I know it's like the whole green matches the rest of the greenness, but I don't know how I feel about them. Otherwise, I'm going to rate this fit like a solid 8.5, I think, out of 10.
Oh, okay. Ash, what do you reckon you'd give it?
I'd go a good 9. See, I like how the Pegasians go all right with the greenish monkey face and the patches of green around the lapel area.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a 9. I think Ayiza's the Simon Cowell of this panel.
It's okay. You know what? You need that kind of person, right, to balance it out and just to validate both your and Ash's votes. So now this makes me think we need to do a Fashionscape contest and actually have JMod judges on. That'd be good fun.
I think, yeah. I think we should. Cool, awesome stuff. That is your player creations done. So thank you very much for sharing those online. I'll be looking out for more for the next stream. Ayiza, why don't we hand over to you quickly before you have to shoot off for your announcement?
Okay, I can go over my announcement. So yeah, essentially, Deadman Reborn, the Deadman finals in particular. If you were around in September, you'll know that we unfortunately had some pretty severe lag issues that were a result of direct network attacks on that day, which caused us to be in a position where ultimately a lot of the terrific effort that so many of our Deadman participants had put into the competition, well, their efforts, in all honesty, were kind of wasted, and that was truly heartbreaking. We announced back then, the day after the event, I believe it was, that we were determined to do what was right for those that were affected. And tomorrow we'll be releasing a blog that will actually detail what we intend to do. But in the interest of transparency, I wanted to make sure that we got information out as soon as possible, which is essentially what I'm here for, is just to give a really quick update that blog is coming. But to summarize it, we just want to confirm that we do fully intend to run the beta. Essentially what's happened is that we've been working hard on a solution that should look to mitigate some of the network attacks and their effect on the tournament, so that we can potentially be looking at having a rerun that will be smooth without issues. Now, that's not guaranteed. There's always potential for problems to occur. So what we're going to be looking to do is actually running a beta in January next year. I know that's a little bit of time to have to wait, especially considering the fact that everyone who was in Deadman has waited so long already. Obviously, September, quite a while back now. But the reality is that the changes that we want to make won't be ready until then. So as soon as they're ready, we'll be running a beta. Once that beta is confirmed that everything is okay and is going to be, seems to be doing what we need it to do, then we'll confirm the date for the official rerun, which will be shortly afterwards. So I imagine that we'll be wrapped up, by the end of Jan, maybe February. Hopefully not any later than that, at least. But yeah, the main goal of the beta is to test the work that we've done, make sure that it actually doesn't cause us any more issues, but also that the save games that people had at the time of the finals are correct, so that when you log in, you have all of the levels, all of the gear, etc., that you had at the moment of you actually being in the Deadman Reborn finals. And there are some extra bug fixes that we want to test, things that we noticed that were kind of like more of the minor issues that occurred during the actual finals itself. So there will be an official rerun to come. We want to do a beta first. The beta is going to be sometime in January. we're confident in our solution, but there is still a chance that there might be problems that could occur, hence why we want to do the beta. And then once we're happy after that, we'll announce an official date. So stay tuned. There'll be more news to come out. We've got the blog going out tomorrow, which will detail it all. So, you know, if anyone else that you hear or see asks, tell them there's a blog coming tomorrow. And hopefully come January time, we'll be able to give you a bit more information on a solid date. But I just wanted to set that in stone, that the precedent is 100% we are rerunning Deadman Reborn in one way or another. And the first step is doing the beta early next year.
Thank you, Ayiza. Much appreciated. I'm sure there were people that have been waiting a long time to hear what we were going to do. So much appreciated for you swinging by.
Well, no, not me. I'm just here to share the good news. It's the team really that have worked their asses off to make it possible, or potentially possible.
Well said.
Well
said.
Yeah, so we'll just see what happens. At January.
Awesome, yeah. And as Ayiza said, you can see it. You can read more tomorrow in the blog. Hopefully, we should get it out around lunchtime. I imagine we're aiming for. So it'll be 12 p.m. GMT, not BST.
Yeah, I think we'll both remember that now.
We will indeed. I think you've got to shoot now, Ayiza.
Yeah, I have to go. I literally just came to do that. I'm going to leave you and Ash to be having a wonderful one-to-one going over the economy. And I'm going to be driving to my parents' house and tuning in on the journey. Audio only, though, of course, because, well, you've got to be sensible when you're in the vehicle on the road. But yeah, have a wonderful rest of the stream. Thank you for having me on. Tomorrow, Deadman blog, rerun, January. Cool. Thanks, everyone. Good luck with the rest of the stream. And
see ya.
Bye.
Thank you. Yeah, once again, thanks to Mod Ayiza for joining us. Give you that little update on Deadman, the Deadman Reborn rerun. So yeah, keep an eye on socials. Tomorrow there will be something coming. Now, just before we get into the economy questions, just if you haven't seen, we have announced an Android beta. So whether you're a casual couch gamer or a full-time hardcore player, we want to make sure your mobile experience is the best it can be. So it's time for Old School on mobile to get an upgrade. So with the recent release of the Steam client at the start of the year, we've been able to implement features to Old School that take it to new heights, you know, with 3 drops of new and exciting features that enhance gameplay. And as previously stated, we want to push these to the mobile platform. So between November 24th, 2 weeks from that date, we'll be running the Android beta for players that have completed the aforementioned application form and have been chosen to participate. Now, you'll need to supply us with a few details, including your Google email address, your RSN, and your Discord ID. And please note that if you're successful, we will only, and I must stress this, we will be only contacting you through your RuneScape account mailbox. We won't be contacting you any other way. If you receive any messages outside of that, it's not us, okay? And for anyone that took part in our previous mobile betas, you will have to complete this form to be eligible to be chosen for this beta. And if you don't have an Android device, don't worry, testing for iOS devices will be on its way early next year. There's no concrete date yet, but we'll update you once we've gone through the Android beta process. So if you'd like to take part and you haven't already signed up, use !Android beta to go and straight to the form, fill out the details, and we hope to send out the successful applicant messages next week, I believe. So yeah, without further ado, the reason why we're both here, Ash, the economy blog. So for those who haven't seen yet, earlier today we released a blog that details some ways that we want to help the current old school economy. These include a GE tax and an item sink, extra bank space, should I say, and a literal gold sink. But before we get into the questions, Ash, I just want to ask what it was like working with the economists, as we brought in some game economy experts.
In that case, I'm afraid you asked the wrong developer. I never met them and never had any contact with them. And I understand that what they were actually asked to investigate was relationships between amount of gold in the game and bond prices to see whether anything could be done by, affecting those. And I think their recommendation was not to go in that direction. So, no, that was not part of this at all. Sorry.
Cool. No, thank you, Ash. That's good to know.
Well,
that's good to know.
If you want transparency, that's what we got.
Well said, Ash. Well said. Right. Well,
but honestly, we're working with the data we have about items coming into the game, items going out of the game, and what goes through the Grand Exchange. And I believe that has been more impactful on how the blog came together. Of course, a lot of the blog isn't about the Grand Exchange at all, and we need about items. The idea of having more bank space available is something people have been clamouring for years. It was quite frustrating in the early years we weren't able to just do it, but there was some limitations on how much code could be executed to render your bank, and we were kind of touching that already. People, especially using the search feature, were occasionally triggering problems from how much code it was trying to execute to render all their bank slots. So thanks, Engine Team, that's getting better. We can now offer this stuff. And in the interests of helping out the economy somewhat, we think we could get quite a lot of coins out of the game from players who are up for, spending to get these slots. It's not bonds or anything, just in-game coins. I've seen some players suggesting they do it via Death's Coffer. We haven't confirmed that because, we really would like to sink quite a lot of coins on this one, and Death's Coffer, there's a lot of stuff goes in there that you wouldn't be able to sell for that price really in the GE. So it might be more effective if we just stick to the coins for the moment. But let's not rule it out.
Yeah, I think that's very wise, Ash. It's definitely something I've seen a lot of players speaking about. But yeah, it's not something that we want to rule out. But we feel like this is a good direction at the moment, and we're seeing all your feedback. So thank you very much. We're taking it on board.
Prices may well change, by the way, before anything comes into the game. This is initial starting point. Between now and launch, we've seen a fair few people feel that the prices are unreasonable. Others, on the other hand, say we should go further. So hopefully there'll be a happy medium that people were willing to see as a compromise anyway.
Yes, indeed. Speaking of that, we've got some questions that we've pulled out from the socials. So I'm going to go through them, and we shall kick off with Walozi. They ask, how would the 2% Grand Exchange tax work on items such as fire runes when they cost 4 or 5 GP?
So if it does launch on 2%, which it may not, then anything under 50 coins would therefore, tax rounds down to 0, maybe no tax at all. We would, in theory, be able to try and tax the aggregate total of your transaction. But the thing is, you can always, transactions don't always happen all at once, and we do let you take items and coins out midway through a transaction. So in the interest of simplicity, it would be simpler just to say anything under that 50 coin mark, its tax rounds down to 0 and there isn't any. Now, while that's losing the opportunity to tax, huge trades of tens of thousands of fire runes, on the other hand, it would also mean that a lot of cheap stuff, things that newbies might be more inclined to want, might skim through untaxed. And for that matter, I'd certainly be willing to exempt newbie tools from taxation altogether. Spades, rakes, pestle and mortar. That kind of thing is often well over 50 coins, but just in the interests of helping people into the game, if they are acquiring them that way, I don't really mind excluding it from the sales tax.
Cool. Thank you, Ash. I'm sure all the treasure hunters out there will be happy if the spades are.
They lose them in the wilderness, I hear.
Yeah, they do indeed. The next question we have is from Chaotic Light. Is there any particular reason that Jagex has decided on a 2% tax versus a 5 or 10% one? would there be any chance of tax increasing in the future?
Well, if we refer to the question that I think is coming up later for how could you possibly choose such a high tax, we thought that 5% might be a bit of a shock to the system, and some might say that 2% is a bit of a shock to the system already, and we should go even lower. Of course, there is always a chance of the number changing in the future in either direction, or indeed being increased on specific items, but not other items. The system should be quite flexible. Means that if we introduced a new item and particularly wanted to tax that one more, we could. But honestly, we think that this is already quite a big change to a game that's not had one for the last however many years. And while we think that a tax would be very helpful, we also understand there's going to be some people uncomfortable with it, and we hope that something in the 2% ballpark will get the kind of effect that we feel the game needs without driving everyone away. Also, it's been pointed out that people may do more direct player-to-player trading if there's a tax at all. Fine. A lot of people miss when there was more player-to-player trading, and some who've suggested that we do a tax over the years have seen that as one of the things in its favour, that it would encourage people to meet up in the game and maybe converse. Anyway, yeah, we've chosen 2% as an initial pitch. We may well reduce it or reduce feedback. I see this player thinks we could increase it. I'm not seeing that as the bulk of the feedback so far. Well, we'll see what else comes in.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of varying opinions to that, like supposed sweet spot of what the tax should be. But again, this is still the first 5 hours of this blog being out, so I'm interested to see what other feedback comes in.
The idea that there's a sweet spot for taxation at all is a bit,
yeah.
There are players who have the incentive not to want one anyway. I mean, I could just see the no taxation without representation protest kicking off again. Although you do at least have polls.
That is very true. The next question we have is from R Sensei JP. Do you think that clue items could be added to the list of items for the tax sync? Now, there's been several comments I've seen about different items, so I thought this would just be like a nice clean one to talk about it.
The system should be expandable for more items. That said, here's why we don't want to bulk out the list massively for the initial starting point. We've not done one of these before. We don't know exactly how players will trade differently once it's out there. I mean, we think there'll still be a heck of a lot of trade going through the Grand Exchange, but players have pointed out there may be less. So we don't want to overcommit to items being sunk from it, because the more items being sunk, the more of your tax coins are needed to sync them. And ultimately, we'd also like to sync coins as well as just items. So rather than starting with a list of, clue items, which is quite a few hundred things in itself, I think, we thought we'd start with some particularly high-profile things where, take Nightmare Staff, for example. That's a particularly contentious one over the years. I think if we could have a positive effect on those as a starting point, as we see how that goes, we'll be able to gather the old data on how much more coins we've got available for syncing other things. Now, in theory, if we became able to sync any item arbitrarily, skilling supplies and the like as well, that could be helpful too, but I don't see us being able to take it quite that far, not in the foreseeable.
Cool. Well, thank you, Ash. The next question we have is from eStake. Since the tax is 2%, why not just use 50% of that tax, in brackets 1% of the sales price, to buy and remove any item being traded? And I mean any item, also skilling, not just select high-end PVM stuff. Every item would have its own tax and buyback pool, so to say. it would roughly equate to 1 item being removed from the game for every 100 of said items traded.
So, again, we're not likely to be able to expand the system to any item. But also, if we did always use the item's own tax to pay for syncing it, that would be an extremely specific reason not to trade that specific item through the GE, and thus avoid it ever being taxed and therefore avoid it ever being sunk. So I think we'll continue using the tax just as a general fund, and also stick for the moment with just some of the most pressing items. I know we haven't covered all the things that people consider to be pressing, because there's a lot of stuff in the game that's decreased in value over the years. All the clue stuff was not a request I expected on the first list, but what the heck. We'll probably start with the ones that are most pressing, from bosses that don't feel worth visiting so much, that kind of thing, before we try to go any further.
Yeah. As I previously said, there was a lot of suggestions on the different kinds of items we should be adding to this. So we'll probably select the most common ones from that and add them in due course, or at the start. Like this, it's an evolving process going forward.
Yeah, I see it being a batch thing rather than all at the start. Yeah,
exactly. Cool. The next question we've got is from Brandon861. 888 mil is quite a steep ask for more bank space. Yet this is supposed to be a gold sink, but you might have 1% of players actually willing to spend that much. Why is the total so high?
Honestly, I haven't been so involved in this side of things, but and I was rather hoping I wouldn't end up being the only developer who's rocked up to the stream. Again, I would assume it's an initial starting pitch and that it could be changed in light of feedback. Of course, if not every player needs all the bank space that you can get. You certainly don't have to pay 888 million to get any more bank space. And even what's being offered in the smallest tranche is quite a few slots, more than you currently have, for a heck of a lot less than that. On the other hand, when there is a scale, sometimes you will get players willing to splash out and say they've done the most there can possibly be, partly for the prestige of saying they've done it. So then that may have been some of the rationale behind having something really high at the top end. But as I say, I'm pretty sure whoever is working on this project would be open to adjusting their prices.
Indeed. And as Ash said, you could go up to 1,000 bank space with a pin and an authenticator on, and that will cost you 37 mil. Just what? Yeah, 38 mil. Sorry, cost you 38 mil. So that might be enough for someone to be like, you know what, that's as much as I need. I don't need to go any higher. But yeah, for those people that want to either flex or they want as much as we can give, it's there for you. Cool. The next question is from Family Knew My Username. Why are you so against inflating the value of gold? Is the issue not currently that we have a deflationary gold across the board?
While that may be a current problem, gold does come into the game quite a lot. And while the old school teams had a lot of gold sinks over the years, including the Death rework, which isn't a huge one, by the way, but it is some gold sink. Ultimately, there is still more coming in. And while what you've read about item sinks is clearly us trying to deal with the deflation, we think that it would be healthy to have gold sinks as well.
Yeah, indeed. I don't think the economies was like a one point solution. I don't think it was ever going to be that. It's way more complex than that.
Indeed.
Probably, yeah.
Also worth noting that while, as I say, the old school teams put a lot of gold sinks into the game over the years, pay that person for back-end access to the Caramja dungeons, for example, all kinds of random things. We don't have that kind of thing for item syncs to anything near the same extent, which is probably why Family knew my username is seeing the deflation that we're aware of. That's why, again, the priority has been about syncing some items here, because there are so few mechanics in the game that will do it, apart from very specific things like your tentacle. But beyond item syncs, we would like gold to continue syncing as well, giving more aspiration to keep going, getting more of it, hopefully.
Indeed. The next question we have, not from a username, but what was the decision behind impacting the seller with the tax and not the buyers?
Could have gone either way. We really could have gone either way, and I don't have a particularly strong view on it myself. For the player who's got the item, it felt like a fair convenience fee for helping you get shot of it and turn it into the coins you want instead. For a buyer, maybe they're more likely to be the newbie who's trying to get hold of some critical supplies, rather than the seller who's got all the stuff already. But honestly, doing it on just one rather than both seems simpler, and we chose this one. Don't think we're massively attached to it. If it would be better to go the other way, then by all means present your reasons for preferring that.
Yeah, like we said, we're going to be trawling through all the feedback. This is not going to be an immediate here it is and it's coming into the game next week sort of thing. It's going to, we're going to take the time and go through the feedback and make sure that we're hearing you guys on what you think is best, as well as what we've presented. So speaking on what we touched upon earlier, Ash, Reddit user 53 says, I think the tax is far too high and will greatly reduce the volume traded in the GE and really not act as the great gold sink you're trying to achieve. Instead, lower the tax and add maker-taker fees where market makers are rewarded for providing liquidity so that trades happen more frequently and increase the volume of items and the overall gold sink. My suggestion, around 0.2% maker and 0.5% taker.
Seems a little like taxing both ends of the transaction, but of course it's a smaller tax, so maybe less off-putting to both of those players. If it is too high, then we can reduce it. If it does greatly reduce the volume trade in the GE, well, if players genuinely do start meeting up in person to do player-to-player trades again, some of that might be seen as a good thing for a community. We do get complaints about the game being a lot less personal when you do everything through the faceless GE with only those clerks and their wooden barrier in front of you. I don't personally see it taking everyone away from using the GE. I mean, the player doesn't say everyone, but there will still be considerable incentive when you get your miscellaneous resources or something to just drop the ones you don't want via the GE rather than trying to do player-to-player trade for all of them. So I do think there'll still be GE trading going on, and that it will bring some sync effect. And if we're wrong about that and it doesn't work out, we can change it.
Cool. Thank you, Ash. The next question we've got is from C2Dog430. How do you determine if an incoming sell offer, which you are scheduled to buy, is at a fair price?
Well, we've got the game's hang on. Oh, one that we are scheduled to buy rather than you as a player. We've got the game's data on what people are buying, what buy offers people are actually willing to put in, and we would not agree to buy out an item if the seller is asking for substantially more than that kind of thing. The coins we'd be giving would at least have come out of the economy elsewhere, so it isn't money we'd be generating. So if we did accidentally pay too much, that's not the end of the world, I think. And as I say, we will aim to avoid doing that based on price trends. If, of course, the seller's trying to sticks their AGS in there and says they only want 50 coins, and we buy that, well, might seem blinking weird, but technically the seller did say they'd be willing. On the other hand, we might also avoid unrealistically low ones just to avoid, well, cashing in on somebody's accident, to be honest.
Yeah, don't really want to see AGSs going for 50 coins on a constant basis.
Well, it's a question who's putting in such offers, if anyone does do that. But yeah, we don't really need to touch those.
Yeah, agreed. Cool. The next question is from Zolty Pretzel. Why not, instead of taxing the seller, tax the buyer? So this is in the same vein earlier. I thought this was a good comment. The seller puts in a price they want, and the GE calculates the tax and adds it to the cost of the item. The item won't sell until the buyer meets the seller's price plus tax. Then the tax leaves the game, buyer gets the item, and the seller gets the gold. This makes it much easier for everyone involved.
Well, it's easier for the seller, certainly. Harder for the buyer. I mean, not hard in terms of effort, but they're having to pay more for the same thing, just as the seller might be getting less for the same thing. It feels like this is just moving the tax from one player to the other. And if this is objectively better, then again, we can. It's not entirely clear that that's the case, though. And we're also, tech reasons, we are going to be a little limited in what we can get the Grand Exchange part of the engine to do it for its processing. So anything substantially different from its existing mechanics will be problematic for us getting this to work at all. I hate when we run into tech hurdles of that nature, but we do what we can with what we got.
Indeed we do. Indeed we do. Thank you, Ash. The next question is from Boss High Scores. All raid items and endgame boss uniques should be added on that list. God of War's Dungeon, Nightmare, Raids, Corp. Not sure why one raid item is included and the other isn't. Those item needs a sync too.
Pretty sure there was more than one raid item in the list, or at least the last list I saw. Maybe it didn't get to the final version of the blog, but I do expect to take more than one raid item. Again, since this is still something unfamiliar and a little experimental, we will likely start with a reduced list of items, even though there's a lot more in the game that we'd like to be able to address. Once we see how trade is holding up on the GE, in case the Reddit user is correct and everyone stops using it, when lots of people stop using it altogether, that will tell us how much more we can afford to sink via this kind of mechanic.
And speaking on that, do you reckon that the Grand Exchange tax will increase the frequency of private trades, Ash?
I think somewhat. Players do like optimizing. Of course, there's also a lot of items that wouldn't be affected by it. Is this your question, by the way? I don't see a player name.
No, this is one I found that the player name is, most of the ones without a name is redacted player name, so.
Exciting. Anywho, yeah, I do think there'll be more private trades because players do like optimizing. On the other hand, a lot of other players like their convenience. So I think we'll still be syncing all right. And I hope we can have more of the items that the player Boss High Scores asked about, because yeah, I'd be very glad to see all of them in there and a lot more besides. Heck, there was that request earlier from every single item in the game to be included, which may be a little extreme, but I get the idea.
Yeah, especially in something we're going to be testing at first. It's, as you said, very experimental. So adding everything on there would be a lot to manage all at once, I reckon. The next question, again from another redacted player. Are the teams planning on adding any more item/gold sinks into the future, and will they involve playable content?
Well, all future content plans haven't been written yet. Could well be, we do keep putting in gold sinks whenever an opportunity arises for something, or a sink that consumes one item. One of the common suggestions we saw coming in from the next blog, for example, was if you were doing more of the armor sets, why would you not sink the existing God Wars armor to get components that you use for making the new stuff? The team is generally fond of that kind of concept, so without leaking anything, I expect you can see some more item/gold sinks in the future involving playable content.
Awesome, thank you. How another redacted one? There's quite a few naughty players on this list. How will the purchasing and deleting of items work in relation to their current price? For instance, buying/deleting tridents to raise the price by 10% will not have much effect, but buying enough T-bows to raise it by 10% will have a huge increase in price.
Well, the price fluctuations remain down to the players. We aren't saying the price will raise by 10%. We certainly aren't going to pay 10% more for it. So what all we'd be doing is reducing the supply of them somewhat, so that player demand can respond by getting players willing to offer a little more. And the quantity of the things taken out doesn't have to be the same for all items either, by the way. We may well be, I'd expect us to sink rather more tridents in total than T-bows.
Yeah, indeed. We have a name for this one at least. This is good. Omega4114 asks, as a mid-level player, I appreciate that some of these items were dropping in price. It made them actually feel achievable. Do you think this is raising the barrier to entry on certain content?
I don't see it making their prices go all the way back up to where they were on launch day. It shouldn't, and on launch day you get, well, the hype for a start, and the supply of them compared to the size of the community is tiny. But I still think that having them drop without any particular reason why they'd ever stop dropping is unhealthy. And since they will keep coming into the game from whatever else may happen, legitimate players will keep bringing them into the game. So having something to counter that somewhat feels healthier. I do get that having them drop in price is helpful for people who can't afford them when they're newer, but we'd like something to counter the effect a little. It's not going to stop them dropping in price from their launch day, though.
Yeah, indeed. The next one, we've got Shadowband 6B. Quite a lengthy question, but Jagex has a history... Oh, sorry, Ash.
I was going to say, you can't be that Shadowband if we're taking his questions.
Yeah, very true. Maybe on some other platforms, one I got this question from. Jagex has a history of not updating things sometimes, or not keeping up with things after release. I'm very worried if the items being sunk are just a list controlled by Jagex, that a year after the tax is introduced, people will be posting memes about how the items on the sink list haven't been updated since release, and all of the new endgame items are never added. Will this be something that will be kept on top of?
I'd expect a new item maybe doesn't want to be in there from the get-go. But frankly, a lot of the pressure to act on item prices is player-driven. Obviously, we think it makes for a healthier game, but the ones doing more the lobbying about it are also the players who are fighting the bosses and bringing them into the game and wanting to sell the items for more money. You're not going to stop raising that kind of concern. And just as we're hoping to do something about it here, I'd expect us to continue doing something about it, especially once we've got a mechanism in the game that can be expanded, rather than the initial hurdle, which involves, of course, rather a lot of players telling us not to do it at all, or telling us that it's going to kill the game, etc. So yeah, I think having got the mechanism in there, we have every incentive to keep using it, as long as we can see that the taxing of coins is sufficient to offset what people want us to be sinking out of the mechanism. After all, if we find that, players are memeing because we haven't put every clue reward, for example, well, we might not agree to do that regardless, because that might be just too much to cover from the tax. On the other hand, if we find that we can be more relaxed about that kind of thing, then sure, we might get to do more. And of course, I look to our community staff, such as good old Sarnie here, to keep an eye on what the players are memeing about, to make sure that we act on the ones that are worth it.
And we will indeed be watching now and forever on, I imagine. Once the tax gets into place, we'll be keeping an eye on what you guys are saying and memeing, of course. Are there any other player-owned house style gold sinks, like the literal gold sink, the team has been thinking about including?
The gold sink itself was the most appealing at the time. Obviously, we don't think the uptake of that particular one will be massive, but putting it at the bottom of a blog with some actual more serious things that will sink more money felt worth it, just because it's a gold sink. Lol. But just about anything in construction is a bit that way. I wouldn't be surprised if we had some more coming in future, even if the most expensive stuff in construction hasn't historically sunk a huge amount. The last one that springs to mind was, what was it? Mounting a big stack of coins on a table in the achievement gallery. I think we found that ultimately only, what was it? A few hundred people did that. Hey, better to have the coins out of the game than not, but it's not going to move the needle for the economy. So Purix style gold sinks are fun, and maybe you like the flex if you're one of those people, but our focus has mostly been on things that more players can engage in. That said, they do remain fun, so I wouldn't be sorry to see more.
Agreed. I want to see a full golden house in like the next 4 years. That's what I want. I want to walk in and it just be like everything golden.
Maybe we could even let you have a toilet for the most prestigious players.
Yeah, not to use, just for there, just for display purposes, of course.
Could be a throne.
I like it. The golden toilet throne.
Yeah, there was a real one in Britain, but it got apparently stolen and cut up or something.
Oh.
Yeah. In the news. Yeah, carry on.
I'm not surprised, to be honest. It was, The next question is from Reap to Weep for You, who says, in terms of gold/item sinks, would the team think about introducing an item like the party hats again? They were the iconic flex item back in the day, and something like that I think would be a fantastic gold sink.
I'm not sure I see it as a gold sink. The thing about those iconic flex items is that a player's got one, and another player might give them a lot of coins for it, but the coins don't vanish, they just go to the seller. So I don't think it's such an effective gold sink. Now, them crowns from Prifdinus, sorry about the pronunciation, those technically sink gold because players pay the shop for it, and the shop deletes the gold and gives you the item. And sure, people have done that kind of thing. If we were doing, iconic tradable discontinued items, it wouldn't be as a gold sink. It would just be as a, really exciting thing for players to flex. Which could be a reason in itself, just not a gold sink. Of course, we also run into the same thing RS3's got, where their Grand Exchange can't handle the numbers required to trade them at the prices players want to. Yeah,
definitely something we don't want to run into. The final question from socials before we go on to a couple of chat questions before we finish up. Lachlan Lloyd asks, what about a literal item sink? Just a black hole somewhere in the GE with a high score for individual big ticket items.
We had that idea, and I was a little sorry that it hasn't been taken forward so far. There have been a few versions of it around, like a black hole or a well of philanthropy, where we stick a well in the game and you put things down it, or just a black hole of nothingness, which you put things down. Somebody came up with a rather more elaborate one where a dragon has moved into the neighbourhood near the Grand Exchange because it likes gold, and there must be gold near the Grand Exchange. And you've got to give it money to decorate its lair or something. Maybe seemed a little elaborate for what's needed here, but no, I do like the idea of literal item sink. And maybe we will do it in the future. We've left it out for now.
Yeah, I know. I saw one on I think it was the Reddit thread that was saying it was like a well that you chuck money in, and you get like the tiniest percentage chance of just a flex gold pet, which was there have been a lot of ideas already on the threads and across socials.
Yeah. Now that particular one might cross the rule about pets not being too buyable from most of the content we've had so far. On the other hand, that's not a hard and fast rule. But I think I like Lachlan Lloyd's request anyway, even if it's not tied to a pet.
Agreed. I like just a sinking hole. Your items disappear forever into the void, never to be returned again. Cool. I think we'll hit up some chat questions before we round up. OSRS says, will the increased bank space come with additional bank tabs?
It does not, but the tab system, as I originally wrote it, is pretty expandable, and I don't see that being a sticking point for future expansions, even if it's not part of the project that's currently being pitched.
Awesome. That's good to hear. The next question is for, I think that's LRobot or iRobot. I'm going to go with iRobot. That sounds a bit more. iRobot 335. Regarding the bank space increase, do you think that implementing the additional bank space at a lower cost or even free for Iron Men would be a possibility? With the scarcity of gold for Iron Men, the impact of this being a gold sink seems like it would be an issue. The high cost of higher levels of bank space also prevents all Iron players from ever unlocking the full space available.
I think rather than exempting Iron players from the fee altogether, or indeed treating them differently at all, we'd be more likely to go with the Death's Coffer suggestion that came up earlier, which Iron players can use.
Yeah, like I suggested earlier, you know, as an Iron player, even though you could argue that Iron players need it more, there are still enough expansion options cost-wise for you to get a decent upgrade to your spacing. So, again, you don't have to go for that final total goal of 888 mil. You can stop before then. The next question is from AQPWT. When will the tax be implemented? And now I can answer this. There's no set date yet. There's no set date. Yeah, we haven't got a date for you guys. Like, this is day one when this has come out. There's no concrete date we can share with you. Obviously, the further down the line we get in this process, the more we'll be able to share with you. But right now, there's no dates we can share, I'm afraid.
Particularly if we are still open to changing the design back and forth, like tax the buyer rather than tax the seller to move the pain to the other person. That's the kind of design change that could slow things down somewhat.
Yeah, exactly. Mr. Mateo Plays asks, will there be any measures taken on iAccounts to keep the items account bound or undroppable / untradeable?
That's not part of it. Sorry.
Yeah.
There could be a separate project at some point, but we've not been planning one of those.
Yeah, there you go, Mr. Mateo Plays. That answers your question. Maxim while relaxing asks, will there be a tax on bonds? Yeah.
I expected so. Although, as I said, we'd be able to exempt certain items from a tax or tax other items at a higher rate. You give a plausible reason for why we might want to exempt bonds from it. Of course, if you do buy a bond, then you might not end up paying that fee because you might just use the bond on yourself. But yeah, we could consider reducing or exempting the tax on bonds.
Awesome. Cool. And that is all the chat questions we have time for because we are wrapping up towards 6 o'clock. So I'm going to quickly run through the announcements again for you all. And then we will say goodbye. So first off, we have ! Game Update. This week's update brings some small quality of life changes to the game, including changes to the Amulet of Avarice, Seed Vault, and more. Plus, we'll share information about our next steps for the Duel Arena, and we announced an Android beta to test out the new features coming to the mobile experience. You can use ! Game Update to find out more, or if you'd like to sign up for the beta, you can use ! Android Beta to be taken straight to the form. Yeah, we should be sending out those, those that are successful, should be sending out this message either next week or the week after that. ! Economy. Whether you're selling your PVM drops, stocking up for your next PK and trip, or simply in the market for skill boosters, the economy underpins everything in Old School for non-Iron players. And we've been investigating ways we can keep it healthy for many years to come. From item sinks to literal gold sinks, read today's blog with ! Economy for all the info on our proposed changes. ! Melvor Idol. What do you AFK when you're playing Old School? The obvious answer is Melvor Idol, a feature-rich, RuneScape-inspired idle game that's now being supported and published by Jagex partners. Find out more about the new partnership with ! Melvor Idol. And finally, for those of you who didn't see Ayiza's announcement, you can use ! Deadman Reborn to just recap. We know lots of you have been wondering about our progress on the Deadman Reborn rerun. Deadman demands so much from its competitors, and to see all that terrific effort wasted was truly heartbreaking. We are determined to do what's right for affected players, and tomorrow we'll be releasing our next steps towards a finals rerun. So stay tuned on socials for that. That is it. That's all we have time for. I've got to say thank you to Druid, who's been behind the scenes working his magic like usual. Big thank you to Mod Ash for coming on and answering all the questions. It's been kind of a nice change in dynamic, just being a one-on-one. I think.
Yeah, I don't think I've done a live stream like this any time recently. Mind you, I've never really enjoyed the streams much since we started working from home rather than being on the couch. I do look forward to us being able to use the workplace a bit more in future.
Oh, so do I. I think the only time I've been on the couch there was for the Summer Summit. So apart from that, I don't think I've only been into the office twice saying that. So I should start going in and working from there more.
I think I've only met you a couple of times.
Yeah, and most of them was at the pub, I think.
Seems likely.
Yeah. So yes, thank you to Ash again. Thank you to Druid behind the scenes. And thank you to all of you, of course, for watching. We shall be back next week, our usual time, 5 PM on the Thursday, for another Q&A. So without further ado, hope you have a lovely good week, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.